But to be fair, we also got to watch a lot of the other major regions as well here, Beatdown. Let's have to see a lot of other potential picks that might come into play for this draft that we're heading into. But it's time to get into it, ladies and gentlemen. Into the draft we go already, getting rid of so many mid laners here for the side of GameWard here. Really trying to target out Scarlet with the Xerath, the Vex, and the Victor.
Yeah, and I think what they're doing here is GameWard are a team who try to play towards their mid laner. Chocolate, he had some great performances last week.
Yes,
and
he did.
honestly, especially it was on the Corki, and that's actually what I was thinking too. You ban out these mid laners, hoping you can get Chocolate Corki. I think that would have been B1 if it didn't end up going through, but they're going to have to go a different route here now. When we think about solo laners, mid laners who are left, there are still some mages, I think, but you got to prioritize the AD carries. Bot lane focus with the TP changes, and Jinx is going to be the first one.
Jinx has just been so popular when it comes to that bot lane. You got that hyper carry, you have that range. That's the big factor, right? And you talk about who's going to be able to match that range. Something like a Caitlyn, but it's taken away. The only other champion that can really contest it when it comes down to, you know, full-on scrapping would be something like a Kog'Maw, but not likely we're going to see that, haven't at least so far. Now into some of the picks here for Solary, as it is going to be a Xin Zhao picked up. We've seen high priority on this jungle here. Great at getting a lot of early game work done, and also really good at being able to soak up some of that damage with that caressing guard as we see some of the team fights play a little bit later on in the game as well.
Right, and I mean, we see the Rakan hover. We talk about for Team Solary, Joko, Steelback, players who have played together for many years now. A lot of synergy in two roles where that synergy is very important.
Absolutely.
So I think seeing these two connect, continue playing together as they have been is going to be a big boon here for Solary, and how part of why they're going to get to their first win. We haven't seen the Rakan or any support come through just yet, but of course we talked about how the mid lane pool is already being pinched, so getting the Syndra for Scarlet, really strong, solid in the current metagame, I think is a good thing.
Lee Sin is going to be the matchup in the jungle here for us. Akabane will be piloting that champion. They did end up playing it in week 1 as well, so we'll be able to play into that Xin Zhao matchup, but really good at being able to get on some of these carries that don't have a lot of mobility like this Syndra. Have to really use your Scatter of the Week carefully. And how about an Azir? Out of all the mages that we do have on the board, I was not expecting an Azir, but to be fair, we do have a lot of mid laners taken out of the game.
Right, and the interesting thing with Azir is he functions in the early laning phase very similar to the Victor. Early on, doesn't get the push right away, but as time goes on, and not a whole lot of time, mind you, this Azir will be able to continuously get you that priority in the mid lane, and whatever lane he's in, because it's insane amounts of wave clear, a lot of scaling damage into the later parts of the game, and it seems like GameWard at this point really indexing into this late game front to back. You see Azir, you see Jinx. I just need to see a tanky top laner or in Sion, something along those lines to just help facilitate this and also allow ways for Akabane to look for these kicks, because Lee Sin, being the sole purpose, the sole form of engage, it's not fun. Austin, I know you play Lee Sin. Being the one to have to start off these fights is so frustrating. I hear it in your voice, and I'm sure Akabane will think the same. Yeah,
it's tricky at times, man. You're just hoping for that flank, and as soon as you do one, then the enemy team the rest of the time is like, where's this Lee Sin? I'm not moving up till I see him on the map. So can be difficult. You do have at least a bit of a shuffle here with the Emperor's Divide.
That's true.
If you are able to kind of get into the back line, but into the bans here for phase 2, we can see right before phase 1, it is going to be Steelback with that Leona. He's played a different champion every single game so far for us, but a lot of the targets now into the bot lane. The Thresh, of course, the counter into the Leona when she goes in with the Zenith Blade, and then on the opposite side, that Jhin that is so good at setting up these fights. GameWard have opted into removing that here too.
Yeah, and at this point, the support pool is actually what Solary are targeting here. Yeah, they're just getting rid of whatever else they can, and GameWard doing the opposite, just getting rid of any of the strong AD carries that are left here with Jhin, Ezreal, Caitlyn gone, and of course Jinx picked up here. I think we're digging into the next tier of AD carries at this point here. We saw on other levels of play the Varus coming through because, well, it ended up being forced over an NA Amateur, which isn't as strong at the moment here. So what are Solary going to look for here to kind of round out this composition? I think if they end up pulling, so
Syndra bot.
So it's actually going to be the Syndra bot. So you actually ended up calling it here.
Look at that.
So you end up getting a lot of, so you have a lot of late game damage. You do have a strong bot laner in the Syndra because Mage's bot are actually quite good at the moment here.
Absolutely.
But I think, especially if a really tanky member ends up coming through on GameWard's side, something like Nautilus, if you get a tank in the top lane too, where's the DPS, Austin? You got burst, but how are you going to be whittling away at these tanks?
Yeah, that will really be the question here for us. You also might need a bit more AD coming in for Solary as well, considering that they now have a couple of AP champions picked up. But it looks like that Nautilus Jinx has now come in, great at setting up for a lot of these fights. You can get on the Syndra, you can lock down this Kassadin at times, which you basically need to do because he just starts rift walking around.
Yeah.
So it can be very difficult at times. And now it looks like we're also going to get a Gwen up into the top lane here. Melonic also playing a different champion every single game thus far.
That's right, and Melonic, no stranger to these carry champions, previously played Graves, played the Jace.
Jace, yes.
So it's honestly very comfortable on these champions, and it's interesting because it made me think that's what I was expecting Solary to go for here, but instead...
It looks like we're right into the mix here, ladies and gentlemen. GameWard looking for their second win of the season. Solary looking to get themselves on the board, but if you missed week one, these guys played a couple of very close, tight games, fell short to just one team fight, and that one really stings here. So I know these guys are looking to come back here with a vengeance for week 2 beatdown.
Yeah, there's particular late game team fights around major objectives that I found were a little problematic for Solary. They have these leads, they're in these strong positions, but in the heat of it, it seems like they struggle to figure out what their comp really needs to be doing. And with the comp that they have now, I'm really hoping that is cleaned up, especially because Fiora can team fight, but as you said, it's not ideal for her here. So Kyo, most value is going to be found in the side lane on the split push, and when these fights do come through, especially with how strong GameWard's front to back is going to be, Solary are going to have to play this one very, very carefully.
They absolutely will. Not sure if you can do a double check there for me. Beatdown is it's Lethal Tempo I'm seeing on Jinx, right? For Inax, not Predator.
Yeah, that is Lethal Tempo, no Predator. I know that had you scared going into this one, right. But it's only for Jin. Don't worry.
That's right, only for Jin for Inax. For anyone that missed a lot of the games in week 1, Inax loves his Predator on Jin, but there is no way you're going to skip out on the Lethal Tempo for Jinx. It is too damn good. But here we go, taking a look at some of the early matchups. Now it is going to be Joko starting on the bottom side. It feels like for the most part he's been starting topside, but look at this Lee Sin already going for the early invade. It looks like the red has been taken away, the Raptors as well. That ward's also going to spot out Joko, and you know this is one of the key components to making sure you stabilize in the early game with this Xin Zhao when you have a Fiora, you have a Kassadin, a Syndra, all these champions that do need a little bit of time to get online here, Beatdown.
Yeah, and I think part of it is because of the fact that Joko starting top moving, or rather starting bottom going up to the top lane, because I think right now Kyo's really the only lane he can play for in terms of early ganks. Syndra needs a little bit of time, a little bit of gold in her pocket and levels before there's actually any kill pressure in that lane. It'd all be coming from Joko. So hopefully, once he realizes that his Raptors are gone, he might be able to find a potential angle here. He's spotted out on the ward though, so Melonic, who's doing pretty well in these early trades, might just be able to get this third wave shoved in and he can just back off.
Oh, this is a bit frustrating. There's a good ward up top here if Joko did decide to go for that gank and to try and assist Kyo, but realizes, all right, that might not be the play. I'm going to hopefully go over to my golems, and luckily they are up. We can see that. He's going to find out very quickly that they are, but this is just such a massive lead for Akabane, who's going to be able to now get all 3 buffs at the start. Joko does do the recall after the second. He's like, oh, this has gone too. Nope, it's off, and he's like, oh, thank God, I get something at least to make sure I'm not just miles behind my opposition here, and the levels obviously being the key part of this, considering that Joko is going to have just a lot of time to try and figure out what he wants to do, and Kyo's taking some aggressive trades right now. He does have a wave on him, but Joko is hovering by, and now so is Akabane.
Yeah, both junglers are here. They actually might get Kyo to pressure because always going in.
Let's ignite down. Kyo does have to be a bit careful. No flash, of course, but we will also see Akabane come up. I don't think it's going to be in time. And despite the invade, Joko still able to find a first blood in the top lane.
And the crazy thing about that is Melonic cancels the recall because he's like, what is this guy doing? My jungler is right there. And you can see it come through from Melonic's perspective, where he just sees Kyo stepping forward and says, hey, no problem, buddy. I'll take this trade any day of the week. Problem is, Joko, after losing his Raptor camp, does end up finding some value here in this early kill, and it seems like Lee Sin just wasn't able to come make it.
Well, that's going to hurt them quite a bit here. Kyo even drops that ignite just to make sure there was nothing else happening. Akabane was not able to get there in time, and well, that's kind of the key part about our meta at the moment in the top lane, Beatdown, where you're just not taking flashes anymore, right? You're opting in for these ignites, you're opting in for these ghosts, and this is obviously a game where we have double ignites here for both of the top laners, so that's going to be on cooldown for now, but a nice advantage over to the side of Solary, where again, it feels like they're fantastic at finding and opening up with these first bloods, but Kyo is still struggling a little bit here in the 1v1.
Yeah, it is a little tough, especially with the W there, hallowed miss for Melonic. And even though he comes back to lane with Doran's and the refillable potion, it seems like he is able to get the better of Kyo in some of these trades. even with him coming back with that pickaxe. But I like Akabane. He's just continuously going to be snagging these Raptors away, and no one's going to be able to do or anything about it, really. You have mid-push. Joko's on the other side of the map here, and hopefully now, because Azza's got some levels under his belt, he could potentially be looking for something here. But it seems like Chameleus and Inax kind of read it and didn't actually bite.
Ward does go down there from Scarlet, so they know exactly where Akabane is, but he gets another Raptor camp, and this is just, really big keynote for all you junglers out there. You come back to these camps after you take them, especially early beatdown. You have the timer, you know when they're coming up, and it puts, obviously, a lot of pressure on Joko on, where he wants to path to, where he wants to go to, and he doesn't know where all of his camps are coming up, and, this time he doesn't even actually fully clear them. So Joko does at least come down here and gets himself a crab. You can see the CS lead absolutely building. Akabane taking that reset. He's running right to the bot lane here, and we also see a TP invested. Azza is also going to make sure he comes down here, but this could be an interesting timing. Joko, could he actually slip by unnoticed? Akabane's close by, but it could be an opportunity to try and burst someone. Inax immediately flashes away. Joko will be hooked up. We'll get some damage right back. Inax now free-firing away, but it's Chameleus who ends up dropping, and that's going to be Azza who cleans it up. We can see Akabane here, but it does not look like he's going to be able to find an angle.
I think that was a little disrespectful from Inax and Chameleus' side, because when you saw those, I saw those pings on the board. It must have been Akabane realizing, hey, I took his Raptors again. He might be looking for mine. He might be looking for Krugs. You be careful. The thing is, though, they end up pushing forward, and Akabane once again is close by, but not able to do anything about it here. So because of that, twice now, Solary have gotten themselves a nice little lead early on, even if it is only a little. When you talk about how strong some of their champions are going to be later into the game, it's a much welcome injection of gold in their favor. But I'm just curious now if this is going to speed up Solary's mid-game spikes here, because you need them. You need some levels, you need these mythics to come through before they can actually look to do anything, and the fact that GameWard aren't really trying to push any early neutral objectives, we don't see a play for the Dragon coming through, I think you're just giving Solary time.
This red buff looks like it should go over to Joko, pending Akabane doesn't come over the wall with a Sonic Wave and a Smite, and that's not going to be the case, just a ward going down here. So you got to give some props over to Joko, making sure he's still able to get back into this game. He's pulled off 2 ganks, and Akabane sure has been able to build up a bit of a lead here for as far as the farm, but that's basically been neutralized and equaled out with all the gold going over with the kill and the assist. We take a look back on top lane. Keo had that assist fairly early on. Looks like he is down a bit of XP here for the time being, so he's just trying to do his best to survive, but Joko is nearby in case anything does break out here for us. And now an interesting topic as we shift over to this Dragon that is now alive and active here, Beatdown. We took a look at week 1, and that was a huge part of what we were getting. Teams looking for the Dragon stacking, but I might have to hold my tongue on the Dragons because this could be a setup here in the lane.
Joko is here, but look who else is here. I think Joko's going to back up. Oh, they got to go.
Keo is getting absolutely shredded. Snip, snip. Melonic finds it. And how about the Dragon Rage? Melonic lives. Nice counter gank from Akabane to get up here. Has that level 6 and make sure he capitalizes here in the 2v2.
Man, that is a big win for the top side of GameWard here. The fact that Melonic lives, he's going to recall for the plated steel caps means this lane is going to be very difficult from now on, as if Keo wasn't already struggling. And the fact is, Melonic just went for the all-in. He didn't even realize Joko is there. Again, it's the confidence that, hey, my jungler's nearby, but this time, Akabane comes through for him.
That's right. This time he's actually here, and he's not just hovering in the river, and now that also means that they get to come down, grab themselves a Rift Herald. This would be the first neutral objective of the game. Looks like it should go over uncontested here, as Akabane will be able to use this. Plenty of time for plates. You could even bring this back up to the top lane, but we already saw Keo down in levels a little bit earlier on, at least down in XP, I should say, and now that he loses that massive wave on top of it, might start to struggle a little bit more. Melonic's picked up the steel cap, so he's very much willing to go toe-to-toe with this Fiora at the moment.
Yeah, when you think double AD topside between Joko and Keo, like it's a very valuable buy in this early game, and it's gonna have a lot of impact here in how the side lane is gonna play out, especially because Melonic, even though Gwen is a good team fighter, he could also be going for the side lane, going for the split push, and the only one who can realistically answer for quite a long time is gonna be Keo. So it's gonna come big, as now Solary finally gonna pick up Dragon number 1. They know Akabane went for the Rift Herald, so they are gonna be able to potentially play for this Dragon Soul as a major win condition.
There it is. Will be secured. So just the trade of neutral objectives. Rift goes over here to Akabane, but will quickly grab the Dragon, equal us out. We take a look at the mid lane. Obviously a big CS lead right now for Chocolad, and this is where Chocolad is most dominant. We haven't got the touch on him so far, but he has been, one of the shining stars, it feels like, so far for GameWard, and that specifically comes in with his laning. We saw his Corki last week beatdown where he was just basically ego challenged, just waiting for someone to walk up, and yeah, I dare you to. And this is like without his teammates behind him, so a very confident player, especially when he's able to get a lead. But now GameWard looking to take some map control, want to get some vision down. 3 players moving into the jungle here would be matched. Scarlet's also in a position where he could look, but that will be the dredge line. Steal back, uses the ultimate, but it doesn't connect.
Going back.
Blade will follow.
Nice
and now it's the unleashed power that finds the first one here for Azza. Inax in a bad situation, is caught out and taken down. Can't even flash. And Solary, they have taken down 3. They have taken down 4, and they will punish GameWard hard in the jungle.
That is a big turn coming through for Solary. You see Chameleons go in for the hook, and I hope we get a replay because I don't think they were expecting Azza to be there, and got 2 really big scatter the weeks. The thing that is roughest too for Inax, he blows the cleanse, he dies anyway, and that's something that is very abusable in the coming minutes as well. This is so important for Solary, who we were expecting to struggle in the team fight, but when we consider the 4v4, it's not looking that bad. And watch Chameleons here. He goes in, and they do know Azza is there, but the thing is, they were just feeling good about their early lead and feeling good about it. But Scarlet and Azza not afraid to get in there, get down and dirty, and they have the damage to make it work.
Yeah, they absolutely do. I mean, also a big part of that, not having the level 6 here on the Nautilus is going to hurt you without a doubt. Not having the depth charge to drop it down and find a target. So that will be a big punish here again, and the blue buff's going to go over here to Chocolad to take a look at the gold lead, and they've been able to build themselves up a decent lead here, just around about 1.5k. So in a position where they're going to be able to potentially snowball, especially with champions like Kassadin now with the kill. Things get a lot more difficult for Chocolad, and you can already see just the support, making sure that he's going to be able to push through mid and also drop the Rift Herald for some plates here. But Solary, they are here for the response.
Wow, and again, the 4v4, Shelly actually falls before getting the turret plates, which is a big deal for Solary. The plates lost, gold GameWard could have gotten for themselves here, so that Rift Herald they got ended up being pretty worthless overall, as everyone's going to go back to their lane assignments here. And I just want to continue on with that point where you talk about Scarlet and how strong he's going to be later on. The fact is, now he's not keeping up in CS, but the kill certainly allows him to close the gap. And as time goes on, he's going to be able to get pretty aggressive on the Chocolad, despite how good of a player we know he is. He is going to have to play this one carefully, because once the Seraphs is completed for this Kassadin, he can really start spamming that ultimate, stacking the damage, and he could make plays.
How about this for a nice little macro play? Just coming down, Joko is going to do some counter jungling while also zoning away Inax and Chameleus. They do not want to stick around and wait for an unleashed power, solar flare, and everything in between hit them in the face. So they'll simply have to back, give up a bit of that CS and XP, but Akabane's going to be able to get something back. It looks like he's got the red, he has gotten the golems, and Melodic is now free to take away some of the plates here. So they do equalize it out across the map overall, and getting some more solo plates onto Melodic, you feel like is a good position when he's playing this Gwen and scaling.
Right, already in the 2v2 on the top side, Melanic's been looking so strong. More plates allowing him to finish that first item spike. The Riftmaker coming through, he's going to be a problem, because a lot of these fights that have, in the skirmishes that have gone Solary's way, remember, top laners weren't involved, and now at the moment, Melanic has quite the healthy lead up against Keo here. So if we get full 5v5 experience, Solary are going to be a bit of trouble.
Couple resets coming through, but the Dragon coming up in 55 seconds. First Hectech Drake did end up going over to Solary, and now they have an opportunity to be able to maybe start stacking with this lead they've built up through mid and the bot lane. And even Joko, who had a really rough start to this game, beat down and is now 3-1 into almost 100% kill participation on this Xin Zhao, is caught up in farm, quite a bit as well. So Akabane not able to deal as much as we were maybe expecting on the Lee Sin with an early advantage, especially with the 3 camps and 3 buffs going over, but not going to play too big of a factor. TP did just come through. That is also going to be Unleashed Teleports coming out here for us now, but Keo not going to have his. He's just going to match Melanic here in the top side.
And I think that's fine. You don't allow, or you try to prevent Melanic from taking this top tier 1 turret. And again, the 4v4 is where Solary are in the lead, because any gold lead that GameWard has. It's in the top side of the map. So at this point, Solary, they get control over this Dragon Pit. They get to allow Steelback to just walk up very aggressively, clear vision, so that even if GameWard actually try to make the play happen, they'll be walking into their own death here. And I think I want to highlight too is that Aza has been playing really well on the Syndra.
Yes.
Last week, seemed like he was struggling just a little bit on some of the traditional AD carry picks, but mixing it up today seemed to do a lot of good for him.
Yeah, that's what I was also talking about too. You know, when we were prepping this game, it's like, you know, do we want to see Aza on something else? I was expecting maybe, you know, like a hyper carry or
yeah, different AD carry
there. But I mean, the Syndra's been working fantastic here for him. But now it's a bit of a race for the first tower, and guess who gets it? Aza will be able to take it down. It will be a trade, but it is not first turret gold. So now it's a second dragon stacked up. It will be a second Rift Herald, however, over towards Aquabane, again uncontested. Just a lot of trading taking place here on the map for us at the time being.
That's right, maybe this time around we could see him drop it into that top lane. Melanic likely going to have the push there for the foreseeable future just because of the strength that he currently has, the lead he's currently got going for him here. And across the map overall, like Solary still ahead about 2,000 gold. Like you said, this bottom side of the map, they all have really strong leads at the moment here, and it's something they can play for. Because if we think about it, even though Solary are ahead, the thing they do need to be careful of is if GameWards get a good engagement. If you see Chameleus manage to pull someone down, set up an X to put out the DPS that Jinx is known for, then he'll be in a good spot. But he's caught.
Where'd he go?
I don't know.
I blinked and he was just gone, beat down.
I looked at you and he was gone. I don't know what happened.
Chameleus, you're not allowed in the river, my friends, and now you know. So that was all the burst we're seeing, and I mean, just look at the differential in the bot lane right now in items here for us beat down.
Oh my god.
I mean, it is such a massive lead that we have here for Aza, and he has been able to take control over the map, especially with a lot of these setups, coming in with the Solar Flare, coming out here with the Scatter of the Week, layering this CC beautifully.
Right, and that burst damage is exactly what I wanted to talk about. We're going to hold that thought. Keo is in a lot of trouble.
No flash, has to pull off an incredible outplay.
Oh,
well, there it is. Sonic Wave will be able to land. Decent healing with the Gore Drinker, but still too many members to deal with, so they do end up finding a trade on the other side of the map here. Keo goes down.
Yeah, you do end up buying some time, which is a nice thing for Keo, but ultimately he was inevitable. He goes down, and like we were thinking, Aquabane does have the Rift Herald. He can drop it on the top side of the map if he wants to, and there it is. That's going to be a lot of extra gold in Melanic's pocket. The extra bonus gold locally for taking tier 2s is very impactful, and even though he's being collapsed on by 3 members, can they actually get on top of him? Oh, they got him.
All right, Melanic, what do you got for us here? 1 versus 3.
Not a lot.
Is going to land. Doesn't even have an opportunity to fight back, and it's just the top laners basically both getting caught, but Inax is going to take full advantage here in the mid lane and see if he can knock down the tower, and it looks like he should.
Yeah, that is going to be much needed gold in Inax's pocket as he's been falling behind a good bit. He has his Mythic, so now he's in a pretty strong position, even though Jinx at 2 items is really what we're looking for. But at the moment, just because of the lead and the burst Solary have, GameWard, I think they can't really look for these fights. Chameleus gets caught out trying to set up vision, and we saw an example of what Solary's burst is going to look like. The full combo coming through here, the Scatter the Weak, the Solar Flare, and just the whole damage from Joko's kit is about what we are expecting. But once that comes through, Austin, once we see cooldowns and those abilities go dark, then if GameWard still have their members, if they still have a good team fight position, that's going to be their way back into these fights, because Inax is going to be the one putting out all this DPS for the squad.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if Solary even give them that kind of an opportunity with a nice 1-3-1 composition that they have for themselves here with the Kassadin and the Fiora. Now, Fiora has been struggling a bit in the 1v1 matchup, but this Kassadin, Scarlet, he is going to start to come online. He's got level 12, level 11, of course, being that second upgrade into your Rift.
Oh, he's stacking.
Now he's stacking it here. Will he be able to move in for a potential kill on Melanic? If he face checks him, maybe, but it looks like it might just be a reset, and they do not want to push it. They do not want to try to risk it. They don't know who else might be around.
Right, everybody's dark on the map at the moment. Don't want to be taking too many risks, especially with the lead that you have. And at the moment here, nothing really is going on. Chocolate is coming into the mid lane. He has long range engage, remember, with that Shurima shuffle, the EQ into that R. So he's gonna, or rather, Aza's gonna have to respect that and just end up backing off. At the moment here, though, we're seeing pings on the map from the side of Solary. I think they want to make a big play to push out this mid wave so that they can set up for this next dragon. They've been stacking some of the early ones here, so this third one would be a really big deal for them, Austin.
It absolutely would, and you can see just the priority from GameWard, trying to get some of that vision down 40 seconds beforehand, a push into the bot lane, but that tower's still standing. Scarlet has his teleport, so he can re-enter into that fight if they decide to contest it. You can see Melanic also maybe thinking about matching the top lane. He has his TP, so he can also join into the fight here. But Chocolate's going to be able to start to hammer away. Again, looks like another trade of tier 1s here potentially.
potentially even a tier 2. I think they want Melanic to go in on them because it's seeming like the Dragon is not necessarily the priority, Austin. They want to keep pressuring this Gwen and just go right on top of her.
Oh, the CC, and they lock it down. Checolad tries to go in, but can't find an angle to get a shuffle back. So now the TP's down for Checolad, and that means that Akabane might have found a window to see if he can try to take down this Dragon.
Yeah, but won't allow Solary to get the third. But you know what? Ultimately, I think it's worth it. You keep pressuring this Gwen, keeping that top wave pushed in as far as possible, and just adding more gold to your carries. We keep talking about it. Skarlet, Aza, they're going to be the late game damage dealers. They have all the burst Solary are playing for here. So getting them more gold, I think, is not a problem, especially because even though Kassadin probably really likes the Cloud Dragon Soul, I think overall, letting go of Soul Point to continue making these plays and push other parts of the map, I think is fine.
Overall, gold lead still around about 3,000. Baron live on the map. GameWard get their very first Dragon of the game. And, I mean, I don't even know if they want to go to the later part of this game. Sure, they have a Jinx. Sure, they have an Azir. But at the moment, you're looking at just the item differentials right now for the side of Solary. And they have, you know, a 4-0 Syndra here. 2 items locked in. 2 items locked in with your Kassadin in the mid lane. So Skarlet and Aza ready to deal all of this AP damage. And now you can see them starting to take away some more of these camps, making sure that they're bleeding them dry of all the resources inside of the jungle, while also setting up some damage on the mid wave, and also making sure that they have this vision laid down for Keo to freely push out.
That's right, and you can see how much pressure they're putting on with this vision. Solary, they have all the key parts of the bottom side jungle warded up, meaning Keo feels pretty good about pushing in this bot wave deeply. He has his team, he has vision to work for him here, and you can see GameWard are fine. They're going to handshake, just trade, and set up vision on the top side of the map. With Baron being on the table, I think they're okay with that. Now the question is, Akabane could be looking to make a play onto Aza, but he does get spotted up by the Scrying Orb.
This is a tough game for Elise in, man. I mean, you're looking at angles in and you're thinking, okay, maybe I can, you know, come from behind and kick Aza potentially, but he's got the scatter of the weak. He can push you away as soon as you come in. So there's a lot of ways to counter the engage and stop them from getting an angle in. We'll have to see if they will be able to find one, because at the moment they are slowly bleeding out in this game. More and more levels for Skarlet. I mean, as soon as he hits level 16, that's where things become even more difficult. The cooldown on the ultimate, just the amount of damage that you will start to deal out, it becomes absurd. But GameWard going to stack up as 4. They want to make sure that their mid tower is defended. They've done a good job of making sure that stays up here, and that's allowing them to at least control a bit more of the map, making sure that Solary aren't able to just freely push in wave after wave, get this vision down, and really suffocate them here in the lanes.
Right, and it's something they aren't able to do anything about at the moment here, Checolad. Okay, looks like he's fine. He doesn't have to blow any summoners, luckily, but the recall does mean you get free reign over GameWard's topside jungle. You start snagging away some of these camps here. Joko's saying, yeah, how do you like it now, Akabane?
Yes.
Who's stealing whose camps? But ultimately, they can't make a play for the Baron, and I think that's the one thing that's going to be really tough for Solary. When you don't have the 80 carry, when you don't have as much DPS your Baron take, it is lacking a little bit, even though you do have the Fiora with you here. So anytime they go for it, GameWard should know that they are going to be playing for the turn, and if they wait long enough for Baron to damage them up, if that play happens, it ends up being the perfect team fight for them. So I think Solary, they have to just keep making these plays, trying to find some of these picks, because I think the only way they can really reliably go for a Baron take right now is if they catch Akabane on the other side of the map somehow, or they get a numbers advantage.
That's what we'll look for. Will be a pause, and this will be a moment where GameWard gets to kind of just wait and just like, all right, we get to take a breath here for a second, beat down. This is, you know, potentially going to be a really difficult game for them to get back into. Of course, everything that we've seen, at least thus far, a couple of dragons haven't picked up for Solary, but the Baron is basically going to likely be the next objective, you feel like. But the big thing is, it feels like, you know, at the moment, the problem going on for GameWard is that they want to get into a 5v5. They want to force this Fiora to come over because she's not great at team fighting. It's not her biggest strength. I mean, the Kassadin is probably going to be the biggest difficulty, but trying to find a window where you're actually going to get a pure 5v5, I think, is where things are going to be really tough, because you can just keep opting into these side waves right now if you're Solary.
Right. I think if you got to look for these positions, and we know that they are doing so, like with Akabane sitting in the Raptors, trying to see if he can find some of these angles here. But the problem still is that you just need Chameleus or someone else to start things off. I mean, sometimes we see, actually, okay, no, he's fine.
Buffer.
Yeah, sometimes we see people playing the Azir look for those aggressive plays, but it's not as reliable no matter how good the Azir player. You don't want him to be going deep in there, especially without the Zhonya's Hourglass. So Chameleus, he's going to have to find something like that, but, you know, except it's got to hit.
Yes, it does have to hit. That's a good flash from Joko. And now Chameleus is going to suffer a little bit more on those engages. And finally, that mid lane tower will go down. GameWard, of course, coming away with 4 of them. But look at that. That's what I'm talking about, Beatdown. You misstep for a second and you lose, what is that, a good 60%?
Yeah.
Oh, man. I played, by the way.
Yeah, that's right. And this is the burst damage we were talking about here. And the support, Chameleus, granted he doesn't have an item yet, still loses the majority of his health. You think about people like Inax, Shekolad, if they get hit by something like that, the majority of their HP is gone, they're out of the fight. So that's what GameWard are up against. That's what they have to be dodging, even if they start off some of these engages. And speaking of, I think Melanic's in trouble.
All right, he's absolutely in trouble. Ignites come down, Mega Death Rocket comes out, but doesn't find enough damage to get anyone down here. Solary basically send the whole squad in. Couple TPs are now out, but will GameWard try to position themselves to re-engage here? Looks like they want it, but Steelback is also waiting in the river. If they do overstep, they get the pick, but I don't think they're confident enough to start the Baron, so it's just the goal that ends up going over.
Definitely not. You can see Akabane, he's fishing, he's looking for something, Austin. He's trying to get whatever vision he can. Steelback was looking for the punish, but it wasn't there. And ultimately, Solary are not really worse for wear. They're continuously pressuring Melanic. Oh, hold on.
All right, TP's coming in again here. Steelback gets engaged on. He goes in with the Solar Flare. CCing, and now we'll go into the stopwatch. But it's Keo finding Chameleus. Now trading onto a second. They'll take
nice shuffle.
But Shekolad has responded back.
Inax
will
is
be able to
excited.
use that Emperor's Divide, but Inax gets deleted. Goodbye. Back to the fountain you go. But Shekolad alive and active. Melanic also in a position where he might be able to clean things up. Overall, not too bad of a fight for GameWard.
And this is what we were looking for here. Asa, he commits it all to take down Inax, but if you saw it, he was putting in a good amount of DPS, well past the 2-item mark. Does mean that this is what GameWard were looking for, that full-on 5v5 where they can finally start to get some advantages. Yes, they are 2 for 2, but ultimately, you can see it in this replay here. They end up going for this turn. I think it's Chameleus who ends up finding the angle, and because of it, they just end up going their way back in. Steelback tries to make it happen, and everything looks good. But watch Inax in this fight. He is under a little bit of pressure, but you can see it. The DPS is starting to come through, and the Emperor's Divide from Shekolad adds a lot of damage into the mix as well. It gets them nice and clumped up for the Jinx Rockets, Austin. And at that point, even with Asa getting that double, ultimately it was enough for GameWard to finish.
It's a lot of shutdowns too. I think Asa had, a good
That's true.
300-400 gold bounty over his head. So GameWard fighting here, tooth and nail, to make sure that we're just not going to bleed out. We're going to find opportunities. Coming back to, I think they had vision on Scarlet when he was going for that back. And then, of course, you have that 4 seconds. Be able to try and take as many players down as you can. Inax, though, no summoners. Scarlet says goodbye. Delete summon now. This is a favorable fight for the side of Solary. Chameleus is down. The bot lane is no longer here. And that means it's time to pull the trigger on the Baron.
Oh, man. Shekolad is still 5 seconds on spawn as well here. And it's just insane how much damage Scarlet is putting out. And we see the replay there in the bottom left corner of how Shekolad ended on the gray screen. But now this is what I'm talking about. Solary, they have the numbers advantage. If GameWard come, they'll happily turn and go for the fight. So GameWard instead, especially with Scarlet running interference, are just going to try and make plays mid. I don't know if you want this.
You don't want that. Scarlet, he could look for a 1v2. He's just toying with them. He goes back in and will delete Akabane. The Baron is being secured. You have your mid laner 1v3ing level 17 on Cassidy and Shekolad. You have it in you. That will be the shuffle. But is it enough? He does solo kill. Scarlet in the river. Shekolad doing his best to keep his squad in the game.
That is a big shutdown going over to Shekolad. The second one he's picked up in the last couple of minutes or so. So that's a lot of gold in this Azir's pocket, and it's showing in the damage he can do. You do get rid of a Baron buff, but ultimately, Solary, very happy with how this one goes. You just won't be able to 1-3-1 at the moment here since Scarlet lost the buff, but you can still 4-1. Top wave is already in a good position, so if you spend your time pushing mid and bot, I think Solary will still be able to get a lot of value out of this neutral. And Joko, you're in trouble.
Might be. That's going to be the rocket. Just does a bit of chip damage here. Shekolad, I don't know if he has an angle on Joko, but
He's gonna go back.
He wants to re-engage. Checolate.
Oh, nice ulti!
Low. How about a solo kill from Joko? And now Chameleon's caught out in the river. Checolate bites off more than he can chew. And that means Solary in a position where they have the Baron and they have 2 members down on the side of GameWard.
I think that was really nicely played by Joko, and what that means is that you no longer have the majority of your wave clear. GameWard, they gotta back it up, Austin, all the way, especially with this Hex Splash coming through. Steal back. He's fishing.
He's looking, wants to set up what could be the game-ending fight. Solary, they have fell short a couple of times. They want that first win. And now it's a summoner, no longer available for Inax. He has his flash up very soon, but not active just yet. Will they continue to push? Scarlet is here, and he's ready to deal the damage. The Everfrost does so much, followed by the Rift Walk. Aquabane, you're not playing League of Legends anymore. And now Solary are knocking on the door. They are in the base. They're taking down the inhibitors, finding another tower. This might be the game-ending push. We'll see if they decide to go for it or not.
It might not be worth it. Scarlet is low on mana, and most of GameWard are still here, but 2 inhibitors, Austin. A big, strong blow into the base of GameWard, and this 6K gold lead Solary have for themselves. They have everything they need to close this game out. GameWard, you can see it. Their carries are strong, Austin. You have 3 items on an Azir for Checolad, but it just feels like it isn't enough here. I'm glad we're getting the replay of this, because I think Joko, he played this greatly. He found the angle to go back in with the wind becomes lightning and the dash, and he used the Crescent Guard to push Chameleon out of the way. He doesn't get the auto route, and it allows Joko to get the double.
And that just comes back to the 1v1 that took place in the river, right? Where Checolad maybe feels like he's got to make some of these plays, but Melanik has now engaged into the river. Joko is going to eat up quite a bit of it. Steal back on the other side, trying to tag up Chameleon as he goes in with a flash. We'll be able to land the depth charge, but now GameWard in a position where they could potentially win, but now they're just getting deleted. Scarlet's in the fight. Azza's here also to dish it all out, and that means that they have more than enough to close out the game. Solary get their first win of the season.
Huge team fight, huge win from Solary. They grouped up nice and good for Scarlet's Rift Walk. And this is more of what we were expecting from this roster here. May have struggled a bit in the early game on the top side, but it didn't matter. Solary are now 1-2.